This week on the 167, we're talking about everyone's favorite topic, debt. Is debt good? Is it bad? And what are the spiritual implications? Welcome to the 167.
1, 2, 3, let's go!
Hello, and welcome to the 167. I am Pastor Lucas Motley, Discipleship Pastor, New Life Community Church. And I want to welcome you, those returning listeners and those for the first time. With us is Ryan Ellis, who is our experience director here at New Life Community Church.
Good morning.
He is going to bring you an experience this morning.
I'm excited to do that.
And Pastor Rick George, who's our senior pastor here at New Life Community Church.
Good morning. Does it feel a little bit like a late night
It does.
talk show, radio? Hey, I'm Lucas Smiley, and welcome. It's like it just had a different vibe, a little different feel there.
Out there driving those lonely highways.
I know, that's what it
Oh, no. This is not Delilah. This is the 167.
Hey, you never know who's listening. You never know.
yeah, there you go.
Be safe out there.
Stand for good, buddy. So this week we're continuing our series. We're talking about finances and financial advice that is found in the Bible, because where else could you get better financial advice?
Exactly.
The interwebs?
No.
So we've been talking about a couple of things. This week we talked about debt. We talked about what does the Bible actually say about going in debt. And I think what the Bible says is, like, don't even borrow $5 from your friend, right? No.
What verse is that?
Yeah.
No, that is not what it says. So
It's Reparations 5:6.
yeah. And so there's a difference between, that's what as I started digging in and studying and preparing for the series and for this message in particular, the mindset kind of is, I've always heard it's a sin to be in debt. So that's where I started. Is it really? Does the Bible say that it's a sin to borrow some money? Is that a sin? And I couldn't find where it is a sin. Now, the Bible is very clear that it might not be wise.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's some, you got to do so wisely and be careful and understand the risk, understand what it means. All right. So, but is it a sin? That's,
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and I think it's interesting because, it tends to be that when we're borrowing money, it's really we're spending other people's money. Obviously, when we talk about, Christians are very quick to say, well, God owns everything. And it's like, okay, well, if God owns everything, that's his money that you're spending. It's his money that you're managing. So I kind of wanted to kick it off with, what is something that you think that you would do with your own money, but you wouldn't do if it was somebody else's money? So if I was like, hey, Ryan, here's some money to invest for me, or, hey, hold on to this for me. Like, what would you actually do differently with your money than you would with somebody else's?
Yeah, I think it's, it makes you feel different if it was somebody else's money, because now there's a little bit more transparency. I always wonder, as pastors, when you guys start talking about money from the stage, do you see like the crowd like shift like in their seat and they're just like
some people
starts to get a little uncomfortable because there's so much pride wrapped around finances and like that's none of your business and stay out of my affairs of my financial world. So I think to answer that question, if it wasn't my money, I would be very safe with it. I would not go into anything that was like I knew that was dangerous as far as investments, or that wasn't going to be very steady. I personally, in real life, make an investment that I do not recommend to anybody else. Yeah. And so that's a thing that it comes in my mind right away. And people have asked about it. I'm like, just stay away from it. I don't want to be responsible if something happens, just stay away from it. And so I think that's the thing, is that if it was somebody else's money, you're just going to be as safe as possible. You're not going to put them in any risky situations because you don't want to be responsible for if something goes down.
Yeah. So if I tell you to like invest my portfolio, you're like, I want high risk in my portfolio. If like, hey, I want you to invest in my like low risk portfolio.
Yeah. So I would agree. So for me personally, like all of my investment money that I have, like in retirement, and it's not a huge amount, but it's a good chunk of money over the years. With our financial advisor, it's high risk. Like it's not low return. It's just I don't care what the risk factor is. That's fine.
Yeah.
Like you, like I'll take some risk with my own money. If you were to say, all right, Pastor Rick, here's $25,000 of mine, go and invest it. My first question would be, how risky do you want me to be? Are you prepared to lose all of it or get a pretty good return? And I would want to know your risk tolerance.
Yeah.
And if you said, hey, whatever you think, man, I'm willing to, I could lose it all, then I would be more risky. And so when it comes to God's money, to know from God, so what's your tolerance? What do you want? Like, how could I honor you with this? And that's what the Bible tells us. These are the things that God says are important to me. Like, so now that I know your heart, your plan, your desire, and you're giving it to me, well, now I can be a little more risky, or I can do the things that I know you're okay with.
Yeah.
Is the follow-up question to, like, if you said how risky you want to get, I'm like, oh, pretty risky. Is the follow-up question like red or black?
Yeah. How,
Well, and like you mentioned from stage, and I think it's something people really have to pay attention to, is it's obvious that people are in different phases of their life.
yeah.
Are you younger with young kids at home? You don't need to be as risky. You got more time. If, you're close to retirement. All your kids are grown. They're doing well. Hey, it's time to shift gears a little bit. Maybe be a little more risky because, you've had a great run with it. You want to get the most of it as you can before you're done spending it. You want to give as much as you can to the next generation, all those things. So just, obviously we're not financial gurus, but biblically, that's sort of, the sound advice that we're getting from that is,
Well, usually most portfolios are set up though where it's like high risk when you're young, and then it tapers off when you're going to cash it in.
Yeah.
And
So
it's-
it's the two ends of the spectrum. When you're really young and you don't have a lot to, like, I can't lose this. Well, then you got to be a little more conservative. Then you get into your prime earning years, that 30 to 50, 55.
Yeah.
And you can be a little more risky. And then you start getting into my range, right? So
Range.
60, 60-ish, 60 plus. Then you start thinking more, like Lucas just said, I got to start thinking about long term. So my earning potential is going to go away, before long. So I can't be as I don't have the luxury of time to make up if I lose, right? So, but there's that sweet spot from when you're around 30 to 50-ish, 55, where you've got income, expenses. Like, I can be more generous, I can be more aggressive, I can take bigger risks.
Well, I think it's an interesting thing to talk about as well. Like, when we're going to talk about debt here in a second, is to think about it from the perspective of, like, I love that the Bible always says, hey, we should be the ones giving out the loans, where it's like, because, it's somebody else's money. And especially if you're borrowing from like your parents, you're borrowing from friends, you're saying, hey, I want to start this thing. Would you invest in what's happening? Like, you're a lot more careful with other people's money than I think that you are with your own.
And that's a Dave Ramsey thing, but he says live like nobody else so you can give like nobody else. And that's such a rewarding feeling, and you can't do that if you owe everybody else money. So it's
and that would be a good follow-up question to that as well, is if you viewed, if you were in charge of somebody else's money and it's earning investment or whatever, would you be generous with other people's money, do you think, more or less?
I mean, I'd probably be more. I mean, if that's what they
Like
wanted to do. Like,
on behalf of Pastor Lucas.
yeah, here's $50.
There you go. Yeah.
But I looked it up, the statistics, which is really fun, interesting. We can do it another time, but I actually looked up, there's actually statistics online that breaks down credit card debt by generation. You shared some of that, I believe, the previous week. And it was interesting because it's like, well, Gen Alpha and Gen Z have the lowest credit card debt. I'm like, well, that's because they have the lowest
That's right.
credit limit.
Right.
They don't have it. But
It's not because they're so full of wisdom.
right. It's because nobody will let them borrow money. But the average credit card debt, so not debt in America, the average debt in America is off the charts. But the average credit card debt, which is usually frivolous debt, is in 2024 is $8,599. So just $1 shy of $8,600. But that's up from 2023, which was $7,951. So I want to talk about, what do you think is the temptation that's really involved with taking on that level of bad debt? Like, how do people get into that?
It's because the trap is you look at the minimum monthly payment, right? So and this applies when people go buy a car. they don't care typically how much the car cost. It's how much does it cost per month. So your car salesmen are going to be saying, well, so what kind of payment can you afford? And then they'll just manipulate it down to whatever your payment can be. So the trap, or this debt trap that we're facing, is, okay, what's the payment that I can make without factoring in what the overall cost is going to be? And so then interest starts eating you alive, and then you're going in the hole, and it's hard to dig out of it. So that's the trap.
Yeah.
I can make this payment for now.
I think that's a lifestyle choice as well. When you talk about that, it's what can I put up with on a daily basis without calculating what it actually is going to cost me in the long run.
Yep.
That'll preach.
So
Yeah, and I think step number one they did was they made it culturally acceptable. When I was younger, credit cards, if you could get one, was very rare that your parents would have one. And then on top of that, it was something you would never use. It was almost shameful to have to use credit because it just carried such a negative connotation to it. Now, it is the acceptable norm of how you pay for everything. Everybody gets 3 to 4 advertisements or offers in the actual mail, let alone the junk mail you get electronically. It's just poured on to us, and I've seen reels and memes where it's joked about that they will, turn their cards off because you can do that electronically. You can stop it from payments, and that's how they basically cope with things, is that if the card's off, they can't take the money off of it, and they forget it, and they have to turn their card back on to do something, and all these payments come rushing in, and it's like that has been that's what's told to us, is that's how it's done. It's okay to go into debt. And again, back to Dave Ramsey, I know we're going to be offering that class, so I like to keep pushing that, but he talks about a debt snowball, right? So that concept is you start small and it picks up, you keep paying little payments till they get to bigger. Well, it's the reverse is the same way. You started off with, I got approved at Best Buy and I bought a PlayStation. It was $500. That's not that big a deal. Well, then you realize, that was painless. I didn't even have to do anything. Well, then I'm going to use that card somewhere else. I'm put a little fuel on it, and you start snowballing until you realize, I'm maxed out. And now I'm in debt for $3,500. $3,500 may not seem big to somebody else, but to somebody who's not making much and is not making payments, that's a mountain in front of them.
Yeah. So a while back, Trudy and I walked through a financial situation with a couple, and they brought in all of their stuff, like they were in trouble, and they laid it down, and they had multiple credit cards that they had maxed out. And the largest credit card statement that they brought in, when they showed us like their balance, so they were making the minimum monthly payment. They had never missed a payment on this credit card. Every month, paid the minimum. They were not putting additional, they got rid of that credit card. I'm just trying to pay it.
Yeah.
Every month, the balance went up. Even though they were making a payment, they were getting further in debt because the interest was more than the payment that they were making.
That's
It's like you can't,
intimidating place to be. Yeah.
And you can't get out of that cycle, and it just feels like hopeless, and you're in a trap, and what do I do? And I have to keep living, and the only way that I know to do that is to get another credit card. I just talked with someone recently, like within the last few days, who said they had to take money, they chose to get cash from their credit card to give to their child so they could go do whatever it was that they wanted to go do. So now they're going in debt so their kid can have, man, as a dad or a mom, to say, man, I want them to be able to go and do this thing.
Right.
Like, okay, that's great. Well, now I'm going to be paying the minimum monthly payment on that, and that thing that was $50 is now going to cost me who knows what. So it's a trap. It's debt. Like, yes, there is a time, there's something that's, valuable, when you can borrow some money to do some things, but yeah, like you said, it's painless, and then it's like, oh my gosh, I'm I'm bleeding out. I can't stop it. And then it becomes devastating.
And that's where like you said yesterday, that's where the payday loan sweeps in and gets you at your weakest.
Yep.
I just get an advance on my actual income, and then now they own your income. And so, yeah,
and it's crazy too, because like I remember I did telemarketing for a brief period as a job in college, because I was just trying to make money any way I could, and I was selling Discover Card to other college kids. So I had this list that you'd call, you get these auto calls, and it would be some kid, and I'm like, I would eventually just be like, hey, listen, can I just send you this in the mail? You can cut it up, because it helps me in my job. You got bonuses. But it's like they were selling it was like 24 or 25% interest.
Yeah.
Like they were sending these to college kids with like $1,000 limit, but at 24 or 25% interest. And I was like, and I would be on the phone, like you could tell when your supervisor was on the phone with you, because it would like echo in the call. And like if it wasn't, I'd be like, do not under any circumstance use this card.
Yeah.
Like, I'm going to send this to you in the mail. You cut it up as soon as you get it. You do not want to even buy a hamburger at 25% interest. Like,
let me just read you this. You mentioned payday loan.
Oh, yeah.
Right. So, payday loan annual percentage rates are typically 400% or more.
I knew it was over 100, but man, 400.
400% interest
crazy.
rate.
It's literally the definition of selling your soul financially. That's insane.
Some states cap at 36%.
Well, that's good for them.
Yeah, good for you. So Texas has the highest rate in the country with a typical annual percentage rate of 664%.
that's crazy.
You want to talk about business model?
It's like,
What's your return on your
now,
investment?
in what
600%.
world does that make sense?
In a world of blinded by desperation, yeah.
A desperate world where you're like,
Yeah.
I don't have another option. Well, yes, you do, but it's like, it makes sense. I can do this. No, it is like, you'd be better off going to the mafia and saying,
Well, and that's why I think, suicide is tied to
Yeah.
a lot of that stuff, because they feel like there is no way out, and they've done this to their family or whatever, but we're here to say that there is a way out.
Yeah. The only problem is that it's probably one of the most lost art in all of American society, which is to say no.
Yeah.
To deprive yourself and to fast of things and to have some self-control. So saying the word budget is obviously sometimes a dirty word for people, because you think of budget, you think of all the things I'm going to give up. And that's really, when you think about bad debt, it's not about, usually bad debt is not about, I have to buy a house, I'm investing in something, but bad debt is about, I have to keep, like you said, it starts off with the well, I could get a PlayStation, I can just pay for it later. It's like that little want. And then pretty soon it's like, well, we have to have this, therefore I will keep doing. And it's like, you don't have to do anything.
Yeah, and it's a lie too that it's not that you don't want anybody knowing your financial business, because do you know how many credit reports we fill out, how many financial things everybody in the business world knows your money, knows where it's going, knows how much you owe to everybody, knows your debt to income ratio. You just don't want your neighbor knowing that you can't afford to do whatever it is. That's the truth, is that you don't want the people closest to you thinking that you're in financial trouble, when those are the people that should be the ones going alongside you and helping you walk through that. It's a weird backwards thing.
And things are changing in our culture so quickly, and like I don't know where it ends or if it's good or bad in some ways, but I just look back on my own life, because that's all I have to really gauge things by. But our first home that Trudy and I bought, it was $40-something thousand, and then we moved into a $60,000 home, right, and then into a $120,000 home. So we gradually went up, and then into a $175,000 home, and so. But it seems like our culture is changing so fast that there's some stigma, like it's a negative thing to have that $40 or $50 or $60,000 home,
starter home
to get started.
Yeah.
Like, no, you don't go jump straight from that to the $350,000 home, and you kind of start off behind the 8 ball, so to speak. You start off in this place where, it's hard to live on a good conservative budget, because I have to pay the house payment, and now I got to borrow money because there's that pressure to have more. in culture.
So people that are in the mess, or people who are just getting started, like you said, they're starting their first starter home, what have been some good tools and tips for you guys in budgeting? So that you would tell, like, if you're sitting down with somebody trying to make a budget, help them do it. What are you looking for? What are some tips? What are some good tools, resources that you could give them?
I'm going to push financial peace again.
Yeah,
just
that's
because
a great one.
And what's the app for that, Pastor Rick? You always
Is it every dollar?
Everydollar.com.
Yeah. And so the reason why is because it makes it so simple to understand. When you look at your financial debt, it seems like, again, mention that word, this mountain in front of you that's impossible to climb. And what they do is they make it easy. They make it one step at a time. And not easy in the sense that like it's just going to go away, because that's not how you win. You need to climb the mountain. But
financial peace is not paying off your bills.
they make it easy for you to just take those steps, and they call them literally baby steps. That's why they do that. So, whenever I first went through that, I had the same feelings of like, I went into the class just like mad already. I don't know, for guys, that's a thing. You just go in like, try to tell me what to do with my money. This is my family, my money. And then you watch and you listen, you start breaking down. You're like, man, I'm the one causing this problem. I need to listen. And so I love it because it takes you through those baby steps. It breaks it down and make it simple. And if budget's a bad word, I'm going to be shouting it from the mountaintops, because that's where it's at. I mean, it's literally, if you tell every dollar where to go, you know where it's going. And that doesn't mean you can't have extra. You just budget for the extra, and you don't just go off and do it without thinking about it. So don't think of it as restriction. Think of it as it's more freedom, because now you know exactly like, oh, hey, I've spent my $75 for the month on extra stuff. I got to wait till next month if I want to get that pair of shoes, or if I want to go out to eat and do that. It does make you more disciplined, but it actually gives you more freedom.
Yeah. So the tools for us parents, like learning from them, asking them the questions, like gaining wisdom from people that are a little older that have been down the road. So that was helpful for us. Dave Ramsey, Ron Blue is another Christian financial guy. So those were tools that were helpful to us. And then just scripture, being around other godly people that are making those good choices and doing it together. Right. So yeah, you do become a lot like the people that you choose to hang around. So if you choose to hang around all your friends that are foolish in their financial decisions, you're probably going to be foolish in your financial decisions. But yeah, Financial Peace University, shout out, sign up when you see it coming up here in 2025. Go through it. It's an amazing tool that'll help you at least be educated enough to start making some choice. You still have to make the choices,
right.
But it'll educate you and give you a jump start on that way of getting out of debt. And
I was going to ask a question to you. This is kind of off of what we're going to talk about, but what would you say, because a lot of the feedback is from younger generations, is that, like you'd mentioned, your first house was 20 grand, 40 grand. 40 grand, sorry, not to go that far back.
Yeah.
They'll say, well, that's nice for you because yours was only 40 grand. And, does the concept change even though things are astronomically more expensive? I mean, how do you speak to the younger generation if parents are listening?
So it was still it was a small house for us. And we raised 3 children in a 900 square foot house. We moved and bought a little bigger house, and it was 1,000 square feet. But it was still very tight. And yes, we had friends, like our closest friends. When we lived in a 1,000 square foot home, our closest friends at that time in our life lived in Deer Creek, a golf community in Overland Park. They had a 6,500 square foot home. It was massive.
Still big today.
You would get lost in this house. They were our closest friends. So we knew what big houses look like. We knew we couldn't afford that.
Right.
We didn't even attempt to buy anything close to that. We realized this is what we have, and it's okay. And I didn't feel like we were judged. People came to our house. We still entertained. even though some of our friends lived in massive homes.
Yeah.
And I think that's about home culture setting too, because like I would tell people, I'm like, yeah, we grew up, like I realize now that we didn't have a lot, but like at the time when I was a kid, I didn't realize that. You
Yeah.
know, it's like you
So-
just, that's just your reality.
Right.
And so, yes, the starter home now is a lot more, but you can still, like, again, the market right now is crazy. I get it. Like it's hard, but you can still get a $175,000 home and be content with that until you can get something else.
Yeah.
We purchased 2 bank repo houses along the way.
There are
Like-
definitely those out there right
Yeah,
now.
and so it enabled us to buy at a low price, and then we wrote it out, and we were able to sell at a higher price. But again, that's something that we chose to do. Again, I'm not a financial guru. I don't have the answers to everything. I shared, like when I bought the motorcycle, I get it. Not everybody can save $11,000 over, but that $11,000 came through years. I took all my birthday money, Christmas money, any extra money, I tend to be a tightwad. So I would get, for a long period of time, my allowance was $50 a month cash. I put it in my wallet.
Because
I
you
got-
budgeted for it.
Yeah. And so every month I got $50. I could go to lunch or Quick Trip or whatever. That was my blow money, my spending money. But at the end of every month, Trudy, because that's another tool, a great wife, right?
wife
So
that runs the finances.
so like she's awesome at running our household budget. She has, like, her degree is business education, and so she does an amazing job of that. And so every month she would say, do you need your $50? And my answer was always,
Yes.
Yes.
yes, I do.
Please.
And so, but almost every month I would get the $50, open my wallet, take $40 out. Like, it was a stupid process, but and I would take the $40 that I still had left from the last month, and I would put it in our safe. I had an envelope. I'd put it in the envelope, put it in the safe in our basement, and
That's
then
a lot of $20 bills.
it is. And so then it
$11,000.
wound up being $11,000 that I had in a safe over a long, probably 10 years.
Were you ever
of-
tempted to spend it?
Yeah, there were times when I'd want something. I was like, nope, I'm hanging on. I'm hanging
All
on.
right.
And then when that time came, that's what I have.
Yep.
I think that is what's funny about that is I think that's sometimes the funniest budgeting advice is just out of sight, out of mind.
Yeah.
Like if you can put money somewhere that you don't see it and you're not tempted to spend it, it's just gone. And it's like if you can
Pretend it doesn't exist.
yeah, pretend it doesn't exist, and like
Oh, and there were times that I'd go down in the basement, open the safe, and pull out the envelope. And I still got the envelope. It doesn't have as much money in it, but and you can see where I've scratched out how much was in there. But I would
You didn't ever go and like fan it all out and take
Sometimes-
Instagram pictures with it?
no,
Like,
but I would go down and
like
count
lay
it.
down and
balling.
just throw it on top.
Yeah.
Of you.
So just a couple of weeks ago, I was like, I don't even know what I've got. So I went down and I took the envelope and I counted it out.
yeah.
And it's like, no, now I'm saved. I don't even know what I'm saving for, but I'm saving for something. I just don't
You'll
know
know
what
when
it
you
is
see
right
it.
now.
Yeah. There'll be signs.
So anyway, again, it's not. I don't think that there is a one-time surefire. This is where, like, you just have to trust God,
Yeah.
put Him first, read the Bible, and let the wisdom of God's word direct you in those. Don't do shady things. Don't do things that would not honor God. It's His money. Ask Him, hey, what do you think I should do with this? And then just go with it.
Yeah.
Well, and kind of the final thing I want to talk about is why is this all like this is all really good advice. I think this is fantastic because like I said, people are struggling. They're trying to figure out how do I do this? And like I sit down with people all the time and I know our finance team does as well. And a lot of the times it's walking through their lifestyle with them. Like I can't tell you how many people that come in here and they say, I'm in trouble, our family's gonna lose their home, whatever, and we start going through them like, you have Netflix, you know, you have Disney Plus, you have 8 dogs that you're buying food for, like, and they're like, well, we can't give up our dog. I'm
You
like,
can.
you can find somebody who's going to take care of them temporarily. Like even if you can get your parents to take the dog, like you got to eliminate everything down to what you actually need to do. It's like you don't actually need Netflix. You can get a library card and go check out a movie.
Yeah.
Like,
At that point, you're in the mode of everything but illegal things will work.
You get a $30 DVD player and a library card. Boom. You have Netflix.
Roasted.
But it's like you have all this stuff and it's reducing it down. But there, I feel like a lot of this, like I said, we're getting down to is what is the spiritual component? Like, what do you think? We'll just, we can cover a couple different topics, but your last thought, what is the spiritual component to you that is key about debt?
It's God first, right? So that's why it's spiritual. When you don't put God first and honor him, then you get sucked into the trap of, I'm going to honor everything else, my desires, peer pressure, whatever it might be. But the spiritual part of it is the understanding this is God's money. He owns it all. He's entrusted part of it to me. How do I best use it? So it impacts your prayer life, your decision making. Everything is wrapped up in how this flow of money, it's coming in, going out. What do I do with it?
Yeah.
So
and I agree with that. I don't know how to explain it because in our minds, adding payment, if you want to look at it that way, of tithe just seems backwards. You're just spending more money. But I guarantee you right now, if we asked, we would have a line around the church of people who would line up and say, whenever I started tithing, truly tithing to the biblical sense of it, my life changed, not just financially. And this isn't like, oh, you're going to get, like you said, you're not going to get a check in the mail. It's the wisdom that comes with it. It's that your priorities are straight. And it's almost better that when you look at it mathematically, it doesn't make sense. Because then you know that it's working. You know that it's like, okay, how am I, because for us, other than our mortgage, tithe is by far our largest monthly cost to us. And it doesn't make sense. And you think, man, if I could just get that back for the month, I could do this, but it does not matter.
I know.
Because I know what it was like before we were doing it, and it is not worth it.
I see people, I'm just going to pick on a certain group, but it's like I see Disney families that are like, yeah, we go to Disney World every year. And I'm like going, how do you do that? And then I'll get my giving report back from the church at the end of the year. I'm like, oh,
Yeah,
that's how you do that.
Yeah.
Giving it to Disney.
Yeah. But you take that giving away and then you don't put God first, then you don't have the money to do certain things. And now you're in the hole. And so it is a spiritual principle.
And to me, I think that is one of the primary issues is what you guys are saying about either, and you tell which every dollar, I think it's control. Because either you're in control, you have self-control to say no to things, or those things are controlling you. But it's also that principle where it talks about in the Bible that the borrower is slave to the lender, where it's like, but it's really funny because you brought that up in your sermon that you said that we should be giving loans. And I'm like going, yes, it would be beneficial, I think, for the world if Christ following people, if that understand grace, mercy, love, and charity were the ones giving the loans rather than people who are, obsessed with greed and, lust and all these different things. It's like if we generated enough revenue that we were the one giving the loans, that's a lot better situation than Christians being the one taking the loans, and then you're bound up. Like if they say, well, now you have to do this because you owe me money. It's like, well, now I'm in all these, sticky situations. And I think that control is a big thing. Is God in control of your finances, and are you in control of your finances, or is your finances in control of you? And then that gives payday loans, or Bank of America. It gives somebody else control over your life.
Yep. So and so when we loan money, it's, hey, I care about you. Here's $1,000. Take care of what you need to take care of. Then the other person says, man, I appreciate it. When I get back on my feet, I'll give it back to you. And then I could say, listen, that's not the highest priority. I appreciate it. Whatever you do, just take care of it. So then they say, here's the $1,000 back. And you're like, good. Like we're covered. Yeah. It's not like, oh, I've got a side business going and I'm charging X number of interest rate and what. No,
50%.
Yeah. And it's just, hey, you need this. And then when you get back on your feet, you give it back to me and hey, we're all good. That's the borrowing and the lending part of it, which is totally different than what the Bible says. Hey, don't co-sign for somebody because that's another verse, when you shake hands to cover, like, no, that's just foolish. to say, oh, I know they're good for it. I'll put my name on that house. And like when it's your kids and like that's one thing, but when it's a friend saying, gosh, I know you got great credit. I'm struggling right now. Could you co-sign for me? Sure. You need that car. You better be prepared to pay for that car.
Right.
That's my car.
Yeah.
Well, thanks guys for joining us. Hey, I hope you guys learned a lot about debt. If you do need help, we have lots of resources. FPU is going to be coming in 2025. Look for that on the app to sign up. We have a ministry here that you can meet with our deacons. They will obviously sit down with you and go over your finances and help you make a budget and help you kind of crawl out of that hole. If you dug one of those, and that way we can help you out with that as well. We have lots of resources, just lots of resources on the internet with EveryDollar, Mint.com. There's lots of things like that. If you need any help with that, you can contact us at the church, info@newlifegardener.com. We hope to see you next week. If you enjoyed this episode of the 167, make sure you like, subscribe, follow, get notified, leave a 5-star rating and a positive review. Tell all your friends to listen as well. Make sure you go over to newlifegardener.com and check out all that we have to offer as a church, and check out our messages online as well. Thanks for listening.